Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on, good question, March 3rd, 2026 at approximately 8:01 p.m. PST. Now, I've made it my life calling to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use in my own day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I guide virtually every decision I make by, with varying, and now, try that in English. I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have literally worked for thousands of other people over the years with varying degrees of success, depending on their own personal efforts. Now, before we get into it, I'm going to take the time out to tip my hat to Storm. He is our primary moderator in the background. He stays put to keep technology running and to make certain if we get a problem child in the room, that problem child is gone before they become a problem. Then we scroll down and we have Kira Ava. This is another one of our moderators in the room. Also my editor-in-chief and my wife. Now, she is here to keep an eye on things, also keep an eye out for problem children. But one of the biggest things she does is she keeps an eye out on questions in the chat room to make certain if I miss them, she finds them. And to that end, do me a favor. And if you've got questions or comments you actually desire me to see, put them in all caps in the chat room. Now, intriguingly enough, Kira Ava is 100% blind and still sees more in that chat room than I can. Scroll down a bit further and we have Samo Rockstar. How you doing? This is another one of our longtime moderators. Again, keeping an eye out to make certain this place remains a safe zone for virtually everybody. And yes, that means even if you happen to be a problem child and you get tossed once, okay, you come back in and you behave yourself, you'll get to stick around. Now scroll down a bit further and what do we got here? There is LA Moon, our primary moderator in the chat room. She is there, as with the rest of them, to make certain that the room stays safe. But much more importantly, at least from my standpoint, LA keeps a very solid track on what my physical health is doing. I think she wants to, shall we say, not disappoint people. If you're waiting for me to have another heart attack, you might have to wait a little longer because she keeps really strongly on top of it. And we go down. Now, I think that's everybody that got in here to start with. Now we get into, we have Philip Blair. You are in with the gold. How you doing? Glad you could join us. Today, we are actually talking about a very simple issue. Get to know your neighbor. Why? And I'll tell you, being a recluse, there's a lot of times when I go, why go out and find them? But we will get to that. Now, Philip's got the gold. We scroll down, Operation Shutdown. Glad to see you again. You are in with the silver. Hopefully things are going well on your end. And scroll down a bit further, and that is the bottom end of it. So, with that in mind, why get to know? Uh-oh. Did I miss something here? Probably.
Sorry. Yeah, we're just talking about you behind your back.
Okay.
No, LA's just making, LA just says, no, the vultures are going to wait a very long time indeed.
Oh, there we are. See, I'm still waiting I've got glasses on order. They're actually ready. I just forgot to go and get them. So I'm still blind as a bat in a beanery shop. But the issue is this. Now, as I said, I'm reclusive. I'm pretty even-keeled. I don't like anybody. Well, that's not entirely correct. In spite of the fact that I am reclusive I've gotten very fed up with people on the whole. I still am doing what I can to help point people in the right direction. Okay. And I'll tell you, it's a challenge to stay on that track. But with that in mind, people worry, there's so much negative energy out there. Oh, we've got a shortage of this, we got a shortage of that, crime is on the rise, etc., etc. And there is Jeff Garvey, and Jeff Garvey is in with the bronze. How you doing, Jeff? Glad you could join us. We've got all this negative news going out. Okay. And yes, I have admittedly fought depression for decades. And in spite of that, we've got this stream we call Positive Perceptions. Tip the hat to LA Moon. She's the one that came up with the name. And then, I've got the free magazine, which granted, again, I'm late. I'll tell you, trying to break out of depression, trying to get things back on track is a royal pain in the neck. I used to fight depression. Now I just looked at it and went, I'm depressed. I will still do my best to bring a better outlook. So why get to know the neighbor? Well, here's a couple of facts they don't tell you. Okay. They warn you, most of the crimes that go against people is because of people you know. Absolutely. Okay. So here's the thing they don't tell you. Most of your backup, most of your support comes from the people you do know. Yes, there are those of you that have family that, frankly, would be faster to throw you under the bus than they would to pull you off the rail. Oh, Phil goes, I thought crime was low right now. Knockwood. The thing is, if you know your neighbors, you don't wonder about who the stranger was that you saw in your neighborhood. Oh, that's Johnny. And, you know the bits and pieces about him. So Johnny is over in your hedge. Maybe what Johnny's looking for is not to be a peeping Tom. Maybe Johnny just happens to like his weed and doesn't know where to get it. But he's always poking around over there. So you don't worry about it. It's when you see somebody in the area you don't recognize that the warning lights go on. The other issue that you find out is if you know your neighbors and something goes wrong in your area, if you're getting along with your neighbors, they're not the problem. If you're not getting along with the neighbor, the odds are who is the problem. And there's not as much searching around to figure out what went sour. Okay, now I will tell you, for those of you that are in good shape, this works out well. Sooner or later, your health is going to buckle. Sooner or later, you're going to lock your house so you won't be able to get back into it. And sooner or later, you're going to require assistance. The more of your neighbors you know, the wider your array of support is. But you're going to have to live with that. And the odds of it being a sugar rush, by the way, LA, not really good given the amount of sugar I just went through. Could be a sugar crash. Can't do much about that. But the reality is today has been a big, big problem. Okay. Yesterday, I had a nightmare and a half yesterday. It wasn't a sleeping nightmare. I woke up with a cramp in my neck that pulled my head sideways. Now, I'll tell you, that's no fun way to wake up. Oh, Philip goes, was Peeping Tom spying on Negative Nancy and Nervous Nellie's sleepover? Technically, it's possible. Of course, if you grew up in the neighborhood I grew up in, that was probably not a healthy idea. There was, everybody says you got to worry about your neighbors, and then they came out with all these neat little laws to say, oh, you can't do that and can't say that because you'll hurt somebody's feelings. I'll tell you why we didn't worry about it. if you really want to see some of the best problems and the best problem solvers in the world, okay, go to a website called the darwinawards.com. Okay, and the reason you do that is because they exemplify exactly why people my age didn't have to worry about the stupid people too long. The stupid ones didn't survive. I know saying stupid is a bad thing because it'll hurt somebody's feelings. Ironically enough, it hurts the people's feelings that think they know what they're doing. It doesn't hurt the feelings of the people that know they don't know what they're doing. I know myself. Somebody looks at me and goes, "That's an absolutely stupid idea." I'll look at them and go, "Probably." But I ain't the one that acted on it. I don't complain about people that decide that come up with really dense ideas. I really don't. But you get to know your neighbors so you know, especially, for instance, if you live in an apartment block. If you know your neighbors, when you get outside, if there is a fire, you can do a quick head count yourself and know if your friend if all the friends got out. Of course, there is that added bonus. If you don't like the guy in the neighbor, you don't like the neighbor, and an apartment fire breaks out, there's a higher probability you'll just, forget they were in there. This is not nice, people. Get to know your neighbor, because it means you can walk out at night and you can walk outside at night and not worry about whether or not you're likely to get mugged, because you know the people around you. I go walking down the street, I will say hi to pretty much anybody walking by. In all fairness, I am way more likely to say hi to a dog than I am to a person. Where do we go? Yeah, LA goes, my neighbor has Rotties. Nobody bothers him, but when a gangbanger, I hate when that does that. When a gangbanger decided to threaten me, the dogs of war were loose. The Rottweilers like me. I don't blame them. And that's just it. If you get to know your neighbors, they too will get to know what kind of person you are. And that's even if you are reclusive. Okay, and rest assured, I'm reclusive. I leave my house more now that Kira's here because, she's got to get out of the house a little. Myself, I can disappear and I'm not going to worry about it too much. Where are we here? Yeah, Philip goes, the term peeping Tom originates from the 11th century legend of Lady Godiva, who rode naked through Coventry, England, to protest high taxes, while townspeople were instructed to stay indoors. Stay indoors and close their shutters. A tailor named Tom watched her, resulting in the name becoming synonymous with a voyeur.
Oh.
And there is a very welcome piece of history that I'd forgotten all about, and many of you may not have even known about.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks for that, Philip. That's awesome.
I remember years ago hearing about that, but like so many things, I forgot about it. But it's those little pieces of information that you guys add that make this such an interactive setup for me. Oops. LA goes, he was also struck blind. Not necessarily a good outcome, but thinking about it, especially when you look at the reports of what Lady Godiva looked like, did he go blind afterwards or because of? But I will tell you, it is so much more relaxing when you know the neighbors around you. Oh, there we go. Phil goes, I was curious, so I just looked it up. Well, I appreciate that because I get curious and go, I'd like a local pizza. I can't find the freaking menu. So well done on that. You know, but no, with the neighbor side of it, it is very important that you get to know the neighbor. This also, by the way, includes the idea. It includes the idea of introducing yourself to your neighbor. Okay, it used to be way back, and I mean way back. We're talking back in the 50s. Okay, so we're looking 80 years ago now, 70 years ago. You know, people, when somebody moved into the neighborhood, people would introduce themselves. Now, I'm a bit old fashioned. We had a young couple moving into our apartment block just last week, and I happened to be there on the day they were moving in. They also caught me on a day when my leg was working, so I spent most of the afternoon helping them unload their truck and get it into their apartment. You know, this is something that so few people seem to do anymore. See, LA goes, I introduce us to neighbors with a plate of cookies or a casserole. See, I would do that, but I'm thinking I'd like them to actually still like us and maybe talk to us. You know, and I'm just thinking this is a bad idea. You know, and let's face it, people don't like me because of my sparkling personality. But at least I'm honest about things. But when you're meeting, when you've got neighbors around you, and it doesn't matter how long you have been where you are. Okay, this is not a question of when a new neighbor comes in. You're here. You know, you've already got to the point in life you are. You cannot change whatever brought you to this point. Whatever you've done or not done cannot be altered. But you can, starting effective immediately, get to know your neighbor. Now, this doesn't mean you'll become real close friends with all of them. Matter of fact, there are some neighbors that you'll meet that you're looking at going, when can you move out? You know, I've shared a property line with all kinds of people, not the least of which was a pair of drug dealers that lived right next door to me. Okay, we got along fine. Of course, I did lay down the boundaries right early and made sure, number one, they didn't sell to kids, right? And the fact they didn't sell to kids, I don't care if adults want to get themselves drugged out. Okay, I do, if it's being forced on them. But these guys were absolutely great. You know, but when you get to know your neighbors, not only do you have extra people that you get along with that you like, that you can keep, that can help keep an eye on your property, but you also have the added bonus of people that if you run into a problem, like in my case, I used to have, well, I still have problems with vehicles. I don't own one right now, but whenever I required help, I always knew somebody near me that could help me with the car. Because I'll tell you, I have trouble finding the oil cap. Okay. Yeah. Samuel goes, it was the norm of how we welcome some. Yeah, there you go. LA goes, we know the people across the street on both sides and next door, 2 doors on both sides. Absolutely. Renee, how you doing? Glad you could join us. I did get that picture you sent me. That was intriguing, but very much appreciated. You know, the reality is the more you know, the more of your neighbors you know, the better off you are. Within reason, people. Now, do understand when I say get to know them, I do not mean you have to draw them over for coffee. If you'd like to, go right ahead. I strongly encourage it. Okay. Myself, I've been in the same apartment for 10 years now. I've been invited to a number of people's places. They've said, drop by, right? To be frank, I haven't gone into any of the apartments, okay, except this last one I just helped them move in. But I don't go visiting my neighbors, and much as I've left the door open for them, I've yet to have a neighbor want to come over and join me for coffee. But every one of them I know by name. Well, no, every one of them I know by face. Most of them I've heard the name and then promptly forgot it. Yeah, LA goes, none of us are real close, but we're available if help is needed. Oh, and what we got here? Oh, Renee just goes, I have the best next door neighbor. I kind of look at it, and I one of the regulars that used to be in here all the time has what I consider a really fascinating next door neighbor. He's got a graveyard out his back window. Whew. And for me, this is just plain a good place to be.
Something I found rather fascinating. So a lot of people will introduce themselves to new neighbors. Back when I was living in Utah, I had a new neighbor come in, and the food thing is kind of a tradition for a lot of folks. But I had a new neighbor come in to come and live on my street, and they introduced us they introduced themselves to us by giving us some of their like culture based food. They were Chinese and happened to give us mooncakes as an introduction. So that was interesting. That was fun. So yeah, get to learn a little bit about their culture as well.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. Like we're Canadian up here, obviously, but I'll tell you, the mix of people up here is bizarre. Just like in the States, there is not, to the best of my knowledge, there's not one person alive today that is of only one nationality. Sorry, guys, nomadic human race kind of bypassed that. But I will tell you, like the people above us, when they first moved in, they came down and introduced themselves, and the fact they had a 4-year-old centipede. So they apologized ahead of time and said, if there's a problem, let us know. Well, I kid you not, this little 4-year-old, he gets up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and he sounds like a centipede all day. But he wears himself out by about 7 o'clock at night. I'm guessing by the look of that, Samo, that you know what mooncakes are. The important factor from my end is simple. The more you know about the people around you, the less edgy you're going to be about the people you don't know. Because all of a sudden you got all these little bits and pieces of information. And the one thing that I've got to point out is this. Okay, when you get to know the neighbor, okay, everybody will come with their own prejudices, their own fears, their own baggage. Okay, absolutely, if somebody says that neighbor is a problem, absolutely take it into consideration. Okay, but remember, the fact that you're being warned about it does not mean it's absolutely above board. The sad reality of it, when I met the people that owned the grow up next door, I'd been warned about a number of things about grow ups. I tell you, they were some of the quietest neighbors you'd ever meet. Matter of fact, they had a Rottweiler that we had to keep going over to get them to come and get, because their dog and our dog would dig a hole under the fence. They'd work together to dig a hole under the fence. And then the Rottweiler, because it was smaller than the Bouvier we had, would come over into our yard. But the reality is, the fact they had a Rottweiler, everybody says, oh, Rottweilers are vicious animals. And my apologies, it wasn't a Rottweiler, it was a pit bull. Apparently worse. Everybody told us these animals were absolutely dangerous. But these people that owned them were some of the nicest people, and the dog was one of the nicest dogs available. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Philip goes, I got lost in a part of Vancouver where few people spoke English. I was wishing I knew how to ask for directions in Mandarin Chinese. They were very, people would smile and say, I'm sorry, I don't speak English. I turned around, I learned in French and in Spanish. Okay. And my pronunciation is undoubtedly not great. But I learned that the best thing I can tell somebody speaking to me in French is "Je ne sais pas parler français." Also meaning in French, I don't speak French. Or in Spanish, if somebody's trying to talk to me that way, I'll look at them and go, "Yo no hablo español." That is Spanish for I don't speak Spanish. And one of the things that we have to remember is, and this applies to anybody moving anywhere. Okay. Now, as I've told people, I'm not racist. I'm a speciesist. I look at everybody the same way. But if you're moving into a neighborhood that is primarily English and you're not, learn to speak basic English. You're the one choosing to live there. You're the one that's got to make arrangements for it. It's like if I were moving to an area that I'm intentionally moving to where the dominant language happens to be Spanish, it's my responsibility to learn. Okay. I do my best to be friendly to people, but sad to say, the bigger problem I have is the number of people that walk around with earplugs in their ears and their eyes closed or stuck on a phone. The reality is knowing which neighbors are decent people makes it so much easier. Where we are. Oh, there we go. LA goes, I got into a yard on a client visit. Lovely husky person met me in the yard. Now, of course, the moment I read that there, LA, I thought you were referring to the dog itself. She goes, I always would carry a dog biscuit. We were great friends. We were great friends on the spot. Yeah, no doubt. And came to find out he was vicious, but not to me. See, you bribe the fuzzy kids and they'll treat you decently most of the time. Philip goes, when he was down in the Oriental area, felt he was like in the X-Files. We weren't from where a lot of the X-File episodes were filmed. It was, and that's the thing. Like, I get lost really easy. Been in the same neighborhood for 25, 30 years now. Okay. I still get lost in this neighborhood. And I'll tell you that, for me to deal with that is a pain in the neck. This is why I don't travel around a lot of places. But I know virtually everybody, at least by face, that lives on the street or stands on the corner, like there's a lot of people that are holding on to Bibles and what have you. And I know virtually all of them by name and by face. Most of them by name, which is really an improvement. But it means you walk down the street and you see them, you can wave to them, you can say hi if there is a problem or if you just need to vent. And rest assured, there are days when that becomes a necessity. What am I looking here?
You haven't missed much. You've gotten caught up with everything.
Okay. Yeah, I have a tendency of trying to do that. Doesn't always work. I know sooner or later we're not going to have that option. But the reality of it is this. I have decided wholeheartedly I'm going, like, we're doing Friday Friday to Tuesday here, unless there are extenuating circumstances, which, by the way, guys, I'll be letting you know ahead of time. But the gig that we had on Sunday, the Kira had on Sunday, went off well enough. Okay, it was well received by the audience and resulted in her getting another gig booked for the 15th of March.
This month.
Okay, so we're talking another week and a half here. She's got another gig at the same site. Now, the last time this happened to me, I was on Spaced Out Radio for a one-time guest appearance, is what it really boiled down to. And here I am a decade later. I'm still showing up once on the first Friday of every month. But when it comes to a day in the office, I have to take care of my own health. So I am doing my best to be in there, but the schedule was a little tight. Scratch that, it was a lot tight. But what we're looking at, like the reason I look at the idea of getting to know your neighbor, I don't mean you have to go knocking on everybody's door. I'm referring to literally, when you see them, say hi. If you can figure out their name or if you can ask her the name, do so. I ask their names regularly. But like I was told by one person, it's a good thing you've got a short memory for names. And I looked at them and I said, why? They went, well, you get to meet so many new people. I'm looking at myself here. Oh, there we go. Operation goes, that's where I first found Keith. I'm still looking for me. My parents made a wonderful decision. They called me by my first name, which everybody knows in my first name starts with an R. My first name is actually Ronald. But because of the fact that at 5 years old, I died and got shipped in the morgue, Mom and Dad that day stopped calling me Ronald and started calling me Keith. Oh, there we go. Oh, well, I don't know I don't know the actors by any stretch, but I will keep an eye open for it. Apparently they are rebooting X-Files. It was a good movie. Now, the funny thing about it is, I forget who the original writer was. What I do know is that many of the files they talked about, the events I know for a certainty are real. Okay, many of them I've actually run into the individuals or the entities for. What we got? One of the biggest reasons to get to know your neighbor is very simple. If you know who your neighbor is, especially if you happen to be a little edgy around people, knowing who they are will help keep your own stress level down to a functional minimum. It also enables you to turn around if you get an idea and you're coming up with an idea of how to make your life a little better. Having somebody around you that you can share that with, even in passing, can help make things happen. Oh, there we go. Yeah. LA goes, I speak Spanish with a Lithuanian accent. It doesn't translate well.
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
That's just terrible.
Well, apparently that's what the Spanish speaker that she was talking to said also. And they were speaking English. They told us that she had a terrible Spanish accent. Poor Lynn.
Well, that's okay. The way I figure it, I can't understand most people anyway. Like I learned, because I got bored, I learned to speak bits and pieces of Spanish, German, French, Japanese, American Sign Language, and Hausa. Now, there's a useful language. Hausa, by the way, is northern Nigerian trade. Needless to say, since I don't leave my neighborhood, the odds of my ever running into somebody that speaks Hausa are not good.
Oh no, poor. Lynn, were you told to have your accent looked at? Oh no, that's so sad.
Now,
I'm sorry.
Here's a plug for you, Lynn. And I kid you not, this is literally a plug for somebody I know. My niece has just opened a school. She teaches online. I don't have the information at this point, but she's just opened a school that teaches people about accents, on how to work on how to get their accent straightened around. Now, I don't know how many different languages she works with. She started off teaching English second language. Well, she started off as an actress, then went to teaching English second language, and now she's opened her own school.
Yeah, she primarily works with English, so her what do you call it, mission, whatever you want to call it, she actually teaches accents to people who want to reduce their international accents after they've immigrated somewhere. So but for somebody like me, for instance, who's interested in voice acting, that's also an open door too. If you're looking to learn a new accent specifically for English, and you want, say, an accent from India, something like that. So,
I look at it this way. I've tried acting as though I've got tact. That hasn't worked well for me either. And so I figure, since I can't speak clear English to start with, and that's my native language, I figure I'll work on the tact side at some point. Operation is asking, Keith, do any of the off-worlders communicate with something like sign language? The short answer is most of them. If you take a look at the Udina, okay, if you watch the show Arrival, these are cetapods, okay, and they have an entire array of semaphoric linguistics. In other words, moving their limbs around. Okay, many have color coding they work with, or sign language, one way or the other. Okay, and it can all be very complicated on occasion. Oh, LA goes, I can speak Cleveland, Chicago, Georgian, West Virginia is especially. West Virginia is especially. Now, see, I speak the languages I did, plus mumblies, slurries, mutteries, and stutteries. Okay, and that's no disrespect meant towards anybody. I mean, in all fairness, most of that's against me. But the important thing here with getting to know the neighbor, at least when you get to know the neighbor, if they don't speak English and they're trying, like we had a neighbor from Brazil that when I first met him, he apologized. He says, "I'm sorry, no speak good English." And he literally said that way. I looked at him and I went, that's no problem. I says, yo no hablo español. That opened the door up. We got along great until he moved out. Now we get along fine too. Kind of like I get along with my brothers. They're not in the same city. What do we got here? Whenever apology what is this? Philip goes, I like Mel Blanc's voices. Whenever a journalist upsets me, I visualize Bugs Bunny popping up to put up a banner cream pie in their face with Daffy Duck. Does his wild laugh. It makes me feel better. Banana, not banner. Yep. Yeah, and that's the funny thing. Like, I come from an era where cartoons, you looked at cartoons, you knew they were cartoons. Nobody thought that a coyote would launch a rocket. Nobody thought that a roadrunner would handle a locomotive across a desert sand, across the desert sand. But they got banned because they were too violent. Brilliant idea. Now, I don't have a problem with modern tech, at least not with the concept of it. But where it comes to your neighbors, this couple that I just helped move in, they are very technologically inclined. I figure I recognize the technology. That's electronics. And that was pretty much where that ended. But they have an entire recording studio capability. Philip goes, I felt bad for Wile E. Coyote. Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
Him and Porky Pig both.
Uh-huh.
Storm used to wear a Daffy Duck tie to church, and when he didn't agree with the pastor, he'd wave it at him. See, my ex-wife would never let me go to church because she figured if the pastor said something wrong, I'd call him on it. And looking back on it, she was probably right. I've learned a lot of tact since then. I do actually bite my tongue once in a while. More often than not, that means I get up and walk away. Or look at somebody going like, did you want a backhoe or is a shovel more appropriate? I figure that's a polite way to call it. But the reality is, if a neighbor moves in, if you don't control the apartment, you don't control who the neighbor is. And you still, where do we go? Yeah. Jeff Garvey goes, I bet. Now, that's one of those things, Jeff, I wouldn't even look at. But the reality of it is this. When a neighbor moves in, it's likely you don't have any say on whether that's a neighbor of yours. So you're way better off reaching out and saying hi and getting to know the neighbor, even on a cursory level, than you are leaving it all in the dark and letting them speculate about you and you speculate about them. Oh, where are we? Yeah, Ellie goes, I had more trouble with the little old lady who took care of the church than I ever did with Storm. I don't doubt that. I've done some pretty, shall we say, creative responses to people, especially when they come at me trying to force me to believe something. It usually goes a little sideways with me. For me, I'm fine. I remember one lady come out. I'm not going to repeat verbatim what I said because it would require swearing. Okay, but this woman, I was walking through the mall with a friend of mine. I have no idea what the friend said at this point, but whatever he said, I swore. Right? It was good natured. I just swore, and this little old lady comes flying out of this room and waving her umbrella at me. She goes, "Thou shalt not call thy Lord's name in vain." And I looked at her and I said, well, if he'd get his tail down here when I call him, it wouldn't be in vain now, would it? My buddy hit the floor and she stormed off. Now, I'm not sure, but apparently that was not the right way to say that. Yeah. Jeff goes, my mother hates her neighbors. I always try and ask her to try and like them. And, sometimes the best you can do with a neighbor is tolerate them. Okay? Sad to say, sometimes that's the best you can do with a family member. But by getting to know the neighbor, at least get to know them by name and who they are, you won't question so much. You don't question so much, who are all these people going into this house? We've got apartments here where there's only 2 bedrooms and they've got 5 and 6 people living in them. And of course, in today's economy, with the rent the way it is, it's a big problem. Yeah, Samo goes, it's sad when you don't have lovely neighbors. You know, I remember being in one neighborhood where one person, like it wasn't my neighborhood, the one next door, one person moved in, they were a problem. Every neighbor on the block didn't like them because, well, they were a problem. But the whole group, the whole neighborhood, jumped on this guy so bad that he up and moved. Now, a number of years ago, when I first started this stream, and this area here, you know, positive perceptions, is a neighborhood. And I kid you not, years ago, before a storm in LA stepped in to handle the moderating, there was a guy that came into the room. I forget what he said, but there's a lot of cross chatter that goes on in here, and I don't have a problem with it. Okay, but this one guy came into my chat room here, and the first words out of his mouth is he insulted the entire crew, the entire audience, and told them that they were extremely stupid, etc., etc. Right? Well, virtually everyone in the audience jumped on the guy and told him to get out. I never had a chance to respond to him, right, before he exited himself. I didn't have a moderator at the time, but many of the people that were here at that point just landed on him with both feet and a baseball bat. Here we are. Yeah, see, I did grow up in the church, and once in a while I'll talk about that side of it, you know. But the reality is, whoever your neighbor is, wherever they came from, okay, if they don't speak English, absolutely either learn yourself whatever language they're speaking, and good luck figuring what that is most of the time, or just simply say hi to them in English, okay. It doesn't hurt to be nice. There was a neighbor that I had years ago. I said hello to her every day. She had a self-esteem that was an absolute shambles. Every time I saw her, I'd look at her, I'd say hi. Okay? Well, it was almost 7 years of this before she finally dug up the courage to say hi again. You know, to say hi in response. You know, it started off, I'd say hi, she'd totally ignore me. Then it worked, I improved to the point she'd lift her hand. You know, the important thing that you have to remember is all things on this planet are connected. And that means, I hate to tell you this, some of you are not going to believe me on this one, but you're not the center of the world. Okay, you're really not. Okay, and it does take people from all walks of life. And yes, for me, this also means the insects, the animals, the people, the plants. You know, now granted, I don't invite people into my house. Ants I evict, and spiders I kill. Okay, you know, I don't kill people coming into my house, but I certainly have no problem about telling them to leave. Now, that said, the reason to get to know your neighbor is simple. Then by getting to know your neighbor, we can make this world seem a little smaller. Okay. Now, I've just been told we are down to 10 minutes. Let me see if I've got this up. Apparently not. I usually do. So we open up this because I can't tell you what I'm doing if I don't. We go File. Open, and normally I have this all sorted out. There we are. Okay. There we are. Now, we are on the 3rd right now. Okay. Friday I haven't picked yet. I do, however, have on Saturday, we will be dealing with how the consortium deals with FTL as requested by Roberto Clayan. And I probably got the last name wrong. You know, I wrote it down. But tonight, like, I'm going on, like, today's Tuesday, so of course I'm gone Wednesday and Thursday. We will be back here on Friday.
No, we won't.
No, we won't. Friday's SOR. Thank you very much. Friday is SOR, so let's get that corrected right now. Okay.
Sorry,
Thank you
guys.
very much. Mhm. Yeah, apparently that is not going to happen. Saturday we will be back. And then, of course, this Sunday, so Saturday we will be back with how the consortium deals with FTL, faster than light travel. Okay, that was requested. I think I've got the last name wrong, but I've got it written down as Roberto Clan. Okay, on Sunday we will be dealing with spiritual leaders and guidance, their responsibility to society. Now, this is likely to go against a lot of what other people believe. Monday, I don't know yet. Tuesday, we are going to talk about something that Kira asked me to bring up. What is treating all peoples as equals? What really does that mean? Because I keep talking about it. I keep telling you, this is the way I look at people. So we're going to go back and take a look at that. Now, that said, okay, there we go. Now, we are down under the 5-minute mark. So people, thank you so very much for sharing your time with us tonight. Really appreciate it. We will be back again. Okay, but until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.